God's blessings to everyone. This is a DGHradio.com news and information news update for the United States and the world, and I'm reporter KKH reporting the news for Thursday, October 9th, 2025, covering the latest developments from across the United States and around the globe. A rare opening in the Gaza crisis tonight. Mediators say Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first steps that pause hostilities and begin staged exchanges of hostages for prisoners. The framework ties each subsequent phase to verifiable benchmarks and calls for rapid expansion of humanitarian aid corridors. Officials caution that the plan will face immediate tests, from potential spoilers to political pressures on both sides, to the challenge of validating withdrawals and releases in real time. Families awaiting reunions and civilians seeking relief are closely watching the next 72 hours. In Washington, the federal government shutdown has rolled into a second week, broadening the impact on workers, travelers, and businesses. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees face missed paychecks as agencies triage essential operations. National parks and research programs remain curtailed. Small business lending and some housing approvals are paused. Aviation has seen scattered delays as staffing stretches across air traffic and safety roles. Economists warn prolonged brinkmanship can dent consumer confidence and trim fourth quarter growth, even if a late budget deal ultimately lands. Newly released Federal Reserve minutes show policymakers walking a narrow line between softer hiring and inflation still above the 2% target. Most officials favor a measured approach, waiting for clearer evidence that price pressures are on a durable downtrend before moving more aggressively. Energy costs, fiscal uncertainty, and geopolitics add noise to the outlook. Translation for households and businesses. Borrowing costs are likely to ease gradually, and the path ahead remains data dependent. Overseas, Taiwan's latest defense review warns of intensifying hybrid pressure from Beijing, disinformation campaigns, cyber probing of utilities and communications, and gray zone maritime activity designed to erode public confidence. Taipei is leaning into an asymmetric strategy: mobile missile units, dispersed logistics, hardened power and data networks, and renewed civil defense training. Regional partners are expanding exercises while technology supply chains tied to the island continue stress testing contingency plans. On the battlefield in Ukraine, Kyiv reports inflicting losses on Russian units near the Donetsk front, while Moscow claims advances elsewhere. The war remains a grinding contest of precision strikes, drones, electronic warfare, and layered fortifications. With winter approaching, the stakes rise for energy infrastructure and civilian protection. Humanitarian needs remain acute, and diplomacy is still stalled. Energy markets are calmer. Crude has drifted lower on signs that a first-phase Gaza deal is reducing the immediate risk of a wider Middle East escalation. A thinner risk premium could mean modest relief at the pump if the trend holds. Fundamentals still matter: refinery margins, inventories, and producer guidance. But for now, cooler oil prices are a welcome assist to headline inflation. China's consumer pulse showed muscle over the long Golden Week holiday, with hundreds of millions of trips and brisk spending across tourism, dining, and retail. The burst provides a near-term boost to travel and hospitality, even as structural headwinds in property and industry remain. For global brands and regional destinations, it's a useful read on household demand heading into year-end. Across Europe's power landscape, unions at France's state utility staged a fresh walkout as negotiations continue over pay, staffing, and maintenance schedules for the nuclear fleet. So far, the grid remains stable and France continues to export electricity to neighbors, but repeated disruptions could tighten winter reserves and spark price volatility across Western Europe. The episode underscores how labor, maintenance, and skilled worker shortages can squeeze supply even without a fuel shock. Back in the United States, the Supreme Court has signaled concern about how far states can go in regulating what licensed therapists may say to minors. During arguments over bans on attempts to change a young person's sexual orientation or gender identity, several justices pressed whether these laws police speech in a counseling room or simply regulate harmful professional conduct. A ruling next year could redraw the boundary between healthcare standards and First Amendment protections, with consequences well beyond this single issue. Authorities in California have charged a 29-year-old man in connection with the Palisades fire, the most destructive wildfire in Los Angeles history. Investigators allege a small New Year's Day blaze smoldered underground, then reignited days later amid high winds, ultimately killing at least a dozen people and destroying thousands of structures. The case has renewed calls for earlier detection, better canyon patrols, and more resilient evacuation communications when extreme fire weather converges with criminal acts. At the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV will make his first foreign trip in late November, traveling to Turkey and Lebanon for a message of unity and peace in a region strained by conflict and economic crisis. The schedule ties a major Christian commemoration to interfaith engagement and humanitarian appeals. In financial policy, the debate over interest rate timing remains front and center for households and businesses. Mortgage and credit costs have eased from last year's peak but still sit higher than pre-pandemic norms. The backdrop to all of this is a labor market that's slowing around the edges, along with lingering price pressures in services. The central question now is whether disinflation continues without significantly undercutting employment. Public safety officials across several states are reviewing readiness as colder weather approaches. That includes checks on energy grid resilience, coordination between utility operators and emergency managers, and contingency plans for critical facilities. Communities that invested in grid hardening, vegetation management, and cross-agency communications after recent severe seasons say those upgrades will be tested again as demand rises and storm tracks shift. On the consumer front, travel and retail planners are watching supply chains closely for any downstream effects from labor actions, energy prices, and the broader government funding impasse. Warehousing, trucking, and parcel networks report healthy volumes but warn that prolonged disruptions can ripple quickly into inventories and delivery times, particularly for seasonal goods. Health officials are reminding families to prepare for the respiratory season, with an emphasis on older adults. Providers report strong supplies of enhanced influenza vaccines for those 60 and over and continue to recommend vaccination well before peak activity. Pharmacies and clinics say bookings tend to tighten as the season progresses, so early appointments can help avoid bottlenecks. Technology and security remain front of mind for both businesses and consumers. Companies continue to bolster defenses against cyber intrusions while educating employees on social engineering tactics, including sophisticated audio and video impersonations. Households are being urged to use strong, unique passwords and multi-factor authentication, and to verify unusual requests through a second trusted channel before sharing information or initiating payments. Transportation watchers note that air travel volumes remain high, even with occasional weather and staffing delays. Airlines say operational buffers have improved since the disruptions of past years, but they continue to advise travelers to monitor itineraries closely and build extra time into connections, especially at the largest hubs. Turning back to the global economy, trade flows and commodity prices are being shaped by a mix of de-escalation hopes, policy uncertainty, and still resilient consumer demand in key markets. While headline risks have eased in recent days, planners across manufacturing, energy, and logistics caution that contingency options, alternate routes, diversified suppliers, and flexible inventories remain essential. These and other issues are of great concern within the islands and beyond. What do you think? Do you have some good solutions? Let us know your thoughts by texting your comments to 1-315-898-1449. You can also join our WhatsApp group and get the news, weather, and headlines on your phone. To join, text JOIN to 1-315-898-1449. Please include your name in the text message. You will receive a call to verify your request. I'm your reporter, KKH, signing off for DGHradio.com. Remember, KKH and DGH together, we provide key facts, keen judgment, and honesty as we deliver groundbreaking headlines. Ciao.